boggles the mind. Also because it boggles the mind in a way that is inconceivable, I guess, unless you have Ferrari F40 money. And maybe this makes perfect sense to you. I don't have Ferrari F40 money. And so this boggles my mind a little bit. But the guy basically walked into this Ineos dealership with his Ferrari F40. A side note, imagine being the sales guy on the floor at that dealership. And you see this F40 drive by and you're like, whoa, an F40, no way. And then he pulls into your dealership. Oh man, he's pulling in here. The guy gets out, walks into the dealership, and you're the first salesman. You grab the up, and then you go, well, what can I do for you? He's like, I want to trade this car in. Deer in headlights. What? What do you mean? So, and that's exactly how this unfolded.
From Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak, this is the Automotive ADHD Show with Matt West.
So somebody drove to a dealership in a Ferrari F40 and traded it in on what is possibly the worst deal to have ever happened in the history of the universe. They just traded in. Okay, we're going to get to it. We're going to get to that. Why did they do that? Should they have done that? And was the dealer happy about it? And that last question I already have the answer for, and you know it. Yes, they were very happy about it. So we're going to discuss that. There is also a controversy over a stolen Hemi that is not a Hemi and wasn't stolen. You confused yet? Yeah, I know. Everyone is. We're going to discuss that. And I want to do a little bit of a rant on left lane hogs. So when I was driving from Washington, D.C. back to Colorado a few weeks ago, I noticed some left lane behavior that I actually think is outright dangerous. So we're going to discuss that. We're going to play your car sounds and more on this edition of the Automotive ADHD Show. By the way, I do want to thank you for joining me. If you're joining me on my flagship station, AM 1460, The Answer, at its new airtime. Yes, the show original, now it airs, re-airs a couple of times. Actually, we don't call them re-airing in the industry. We call it a encore, obviously. But it re-airs multiple times throughout the weekend after that and on different stations. But if you're catching the original airing, that's at 2 p.m. Saturday now. So thank you for joining me here. And of course, you can catch this show online as well, on video, on YouTube, as well as Spotify, but wherever else fine podcasts and, you know, this one are downloaded. And if you do listen on the radio, do me a favor and go to the YouTube channel, look up Automotive ADHD Show on YouTube, and subscribe to the channel. We are so close to hitting a threshold which would allow me to get paid for views. That's definitely not the motivation. I promise you that that's not the motivation, but we're this close away from it. We're really close. So anyway, go check it out on YouTube. Look up Automotive ADHD Show on YouTube there. So I got to talk about something related to California as we kick things off here on the show. Which, and by the way, there's a good portion of people that are going to groan the second I say California. And this is one of those things. California has had, for all of the failings that probably are the reason people have moved from California to Colorado and then brought a good chunk of California with them, typically for worse. Yes, that does happen. California, I will say, has been a hub of American car culture for a very, very long time, for decades and decades. And in fact, one could argue that American hot rodding culture really got a kickstart in California. Now, was it birthed in California? That's debatable. You know, you have obviously NASCAR and people, you know, in places other than California, souping up cars to, you know, outrun police. Typically, that was the intention back in Prohibition era America, by the way, and that's how NASCAR was born. I'll throw that out there. So I won't say California is the genesis of American hot rodding, but I will say it's a very important cultural part of that. And so I want to talk about this, though, which is license plates. License plates. So California is running out of plate numbers. Yeah, so their current format came out in 1980, okay? And they projected back in 1980 that the current format would last a century. Well, it has really not done that. It has not done that at all. In fact, it's barely lasted 45 years, in fact, because they say by the end of 2025 that they are going to run out of license plate numbers. Now, their current format, and hat tip, by the way, Motor Trend for the story. Motor Trend, of course, being the non-anti-bacon outlet, which if you're wondering, why is he talking about bacon now? You see, the Automotive ADHD show has butted heads with another automotive publication over breakfast foods. And of course, we support bacon. We have bacon at this show every single day. In fact, the entire Automotive ADHD staff is fed nothing but bacon. And by the way, that staff is me, myself, and I, and sometimes Jim Miller when he comes over. So, but Motor Trend, the not anti-bacon car publication, has this story, and hat tip to Aaron Gold for it. And the format right now for license plates in California, it's a little different than how we do them here in Colorado, but it's a single digit followed by 3 letters, followed by 3 more digits. So the first one would be 1AAA 000, and it just moves on sequentially. Now they are coming to the very end here. They're forecasting the last plate, which will be plate number 9ZZZ999, could happen before the end of 2025, which, for one, that's a lot of cars. That's a whole lot of cars. But you also have to realize California is a little different than some other states, which is that license plates last the life of the vehicle and can transfer ownership with that vehicle, and they don't reuse numbers. So, you know, here in Colorado, for example, numbers can get reused in certain instances. They absolutely can. There's no reason necessarily not to, especially if that plate's not associated with a theft or something like that. And you can transfer license plates with a vehicle if you want to, but that's not the default. That's not necessarily how it's intended to work here. California, on the other hand, because they do it a little differently, because they're California, does have that issue. So what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Well, firstly, I would agree with a lot of people who are saying that they should just start handing out vanity plates. Everyone gets a vanity plate. You get one, everyone gets one, on the condition that you must put something funny on that vanity plate. Now, granted, California has also, there have been quite a few stories, in fact, about how they have taken certain vanity plate ideas and banned them, which is a thing that does happen there. So, you know, tame your expectations with what you get on the vanity plate. But no, rather, they're taking a boring out on this, okay? So they're taking that first. Remember how I said you get right now, you get a number, 3 letters, and 3 numbers. They're going to start with now 3 numbers, 3 letters, and a number. They just mirrored it. That's it. Which, come on. That could have been. There were so many opportunities to make this interesting. In California, maybe the $7 a gallon gasoline there has actually gone to their brains a little bit, and they're not thinking clearly out there. That's possibly part of it. Maybe if, in fact, this could be something that goes all the way up to the top. Maybe Gavin Newsom, in fact, said, no, I don't want an entertaining solution. I want the boring one, please. So anyway, but this is going to roll out in California here fairly soon. Now, I speculate that one of the things that will happen is the last license plate. Someone's going to get it, and we're going to hear a story here come December. Someone's going to get that plate, and it's going to go up on, I don't know, Cars and Bids. It's going to go up on, like, Bring a Trailer, and someone's going to try to get $1 million out of the last license plate of the series. I foresee this. In fact, this is actually a prophetic vision that this will happen, because stuff like this always happens with interesting and rare license plates. Just ask the Saudis, by the way. We've covered this before on the show and years prior. The Saudis are exceptionally obsessed with license plates. And in fact, now granted, they've got all this oil money to burn, and they will pay for like the license plate number 1, right? Someone will come along and pay like $18 million for that license plate. And someone will come along and pay $10 million for the one that has number 10 on it, right? And the fewer the numbers, the more valuable it is. There's a whole culture around this. And I mean, in a way, in a world where money is of no object, how do you flex on your friends who already have expensive cars, who already have Rolls Royces and whatever? Yeah, I guess license plates. Who knows? So anyway, I think this is going to come up for auction. We're going to see a story about that. Pin that in the back of your mind. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk about my trip back from DC and what I noticed about left lane hogs. That's coming up right here on the Automotive ADHD Show.
Listen, if you want to spend $1 on cleaning up an environmental issue, then just spend $1 on cleaning up the environmental issue. Don't spend all the money on the advocacy groups.
Yeah, fair point. You want to get rid of the auto start-stop technology in cars. I believe that's when the car turns off when you come to a red light. Why do you want that start-stop technology gone? Why?
So many Americans hate it. They've been speaking up, looking for help. This was an Obama administration decision in 2012 to create an off-cycle credit for the auto start-stop feature. Car manufacturers then started putting it in more and more cars. And I'm hearing from Americans who despise it. They're frustrated by it. They don't want to have it in their vehicles. So we want to be responsive to the concerns of so many Americans who are speaking up with more than frustration. It seems like there's a whole lot of heated anger over it.
This is Automotive ADHD with Matt West.
17 minutes after the top of the hour, I am starting to like that guy. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I am starting to like the administrator of the EPA. Wow, what a sentence to come out of my mouth with how critical I have been of the EPA for years now. That was EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin. Last week on the show, I went into tremendous detail and gave you my take on what repealing the endangerment finding at the EPA really means. And it's huge, by the way. Another Lee Zeldin action, of course, with this. And that repealing that endangerment finding, I mean, whether you just, like cars, maybe you race cars, maybe, hear me out, well, maybe you own a car, right? So, and there's a good chance that if you are listening to this show, that you own a car. Now, there's some kids, by the way, who listen to the show and write in on Facebook and say, hey, I love the show. One day I'm going to get this car. And man, keep going for that dream car. Get yourself something fun, too, that you can work on and that you can learn on as you get older. That is so important, by the way. But having said that, most of us do own cars if we're listening to this show. And the repealing of the endangerment finding is really going to completely reshape the industry as we know it. It's going to uproot everything. And that right there is another great example of what that's going to do. You know why? Because of the endangerment finding being repealed, that is now possible. We can get rid of start-stop. Seriously? Who likes start-stop? I don't think anybody actually likes it, okay? And it's become a mandate on many, many, many new cars. Nobody is a fan of it, frankly. Now, I drove a hybrid Jeep Wrangler 4xe from DC to Colorado. It's a hybrid. The engine does shut off at abrupt times, and it switches into electric hybrid mode. I don't have as much of an objection to that as I do with just regular start-stop. And especially with that hybrid mode, you're still able to keep going. You're able to actually crawl in traffic and stop and go traffic without running the engine. None of this start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. And not only that, when that engine comes back on, it's when you're up to speed, in fact. And it's a much different experience and a smoother experience having that engine which turns on and off in a hybrid versus a regular gas car that just abruptly shuts the engine off. And people go, and in fact, I read an article on our favorite bacon-hating car website which said, we don't need to change this at all. There's nothing wrong with start-stop. Manufacturers, the default argument now against Lee Zeldin removing the requirement for this is that, well, manufacturers have figured out how to do it efficiently, and they can do it without extra wear and tear on the engine, and they designed the starter motors for this, and all of this stuff, because people go, well, if it's starting and stopping that much, isn't that going to wear out my starter motor? Yes and no. It's a special motor. Yes, I get that, right? I get that it's a special motor. The engine's designed for it. It still doesn't make me happy. And the reason being is that all of that design, the argument is you shouldn't be mad. Things are designed to do that now. The argument is designing things to do that with negligible benefit, frankly, has made cars more expensive. That's a problem, by the way. It's more expensive, not just because, okay, the starter motor is more expensive when it does break. Some of these starter motors, by the way, for start-stop vehicles, have a certain lifespan. So even if the motor's fine, the computer tracks how many starts and stops it does, and then arbitrarily says, hit the threshold, throw a code, you need to go get this thing replaced. And they probably do that to be safe with it and not have one of these things fail when you need it. There's an overabundance of caution that has gone into the design of the system so that it is reliable and it's there when you need it. But my point is that shouldn't even need to happen in the first place. It has made cars more expensive, more complicated. There's more systems. There's all of this stuff that you don't need to have. Now, can a manufacturer come along to me and say, hi there, potential car buyer, I've got a car that does start-stop and it'll save you X amount of dollars in fuel a year. And I can say as a consumer, yeah, that's worth it to me. Or no, I don't really care. Also, as someone who drives a manual transmission vehicle daily, my daily is a manual. In fact, all of my cars are manuals now that I think about it. The last one that was an automatic, I traded for a toolbox. So, yeah, I own all manuals now. That's a realization. But whenever I drive a different car, say it's a rental car, say whatever it is, I can't shake the feeling that when I come to the light that I stalled the car. It's because I grew up driving manuals. It's so ingrained in my brain that it's annoying in a way. It's frustrating. And yeah, there's no harm. Nothing happened to me. But there's just that startle factor still every time. Now, maybe if I, had as much time behind a start-stop vehicle as I have behind any other vehicle, maybe it wouldn't be as big of a deal. But I think this is still a big step forward. Lee Zeldin is not saying that I'm going to take your start-stop away if you want it. He's just saying I'm not going to require the OEMs to put that in there. If the OEMs decide that in their own focus groups and their own research that their consumers want that, they're going to keep putting it in there. So, and it really should be on the consumer demand to determine if they want a feature like this, and specifically if they want to pay more for it. And you say, well, how much more could it be for the start-stop? It's not the point. And the point is that features like this, regulations like this, government bloat requiring things like this has snowballed. It's not just the start-stop, but it's all of these things that have these regulations that have snowballed into cars being as expensive as they are. Some of these regulations, you can say, all right, I can understand why that would be relevant. Other ones don't necessarily have any appreciable benefit. Does it actually make a better car? Oftentimes, the answer is no. Think about all the times that you've gone to the DMV and waited in line for forever. That's a great example of something that's run by the government. Or the post office, for example. And there's some great people working in the post office, but I think they would even agree that the system is it has a lot of struggles, you could say. I mean, the number of times I've been trying to mail out Automotive ADHD keychains, by the way, for people who, send in car sounds. If you send car sounds into my show, you have a chance to win free stuff. I've been trying to send those keychains out at times. I got one bubble mailer with a keychain or two in it. I just need to send this thing off. I can't do it at the regular drop box. And I wait in line for 35 minutes while 30 people are in line at the post office, and there's one person working that counter. And God bless that one person working at that counter, because they were getting it done. But still, that's the sort of government experience that you can expect in things run by the government. Now, do you really want the government running your cars? Do you really want them running how your cars are built? People say, well, it's a slippery slope fallacy. It's not going to come to that. We have these little regulations now. It's not going to come to that. I disagree with the whole notion. I've been accused of that, even in the comments on YouTube, for example. Oh, Matt, you you're just buying into a slippery slope fallacy. Just because it's a slippery slope doesn't mean that it's fallacious. It doesn't necessarily mean it. So a lot of times things like this can snowball into that sense. And yes, there can be a slippery slope that is not a fallacy because it's just a legitimate slippery slope. And that's what I'm getting at. So anyway, good on Lee Zeldin for that. I hope to see more good things coming from the EPA. I really do. I want to give you more good news that actually impacts the bottom line in your wallet, that impacts how you live your life in a positive way, ends up with you having more cash, more freedom. I want to see that, and I want to be able to give you that good news. So Lee Zeldin, do some good at the EPA. Do some good. So anyway, I got to talk a little bit about left lane hogs, and we'll carry this on into the next segment here, because one of the things I talked about while I was on the road in DC, I actually did the show from the Jeep I was driving as I was driving it. I did some talk radio behind the wheel of a car, which was actually kind of fun. I mean, even my boss at the radio station was like, well, it's a car show, so that kind of makes sense that you could do that. And one of the things I noticed, I had talked about on the show, some driving behaviors I noticed out on the East Coast and how they differ from, say, Colorado, how they differ from, say, other places, and also how Colorado tends to differ from these places because we have a disproportionate number of people who drive while under the influence of marijuana. We have a huge problem with that, and it should be called out for what it is. But one of the things I noticed after I did that show, as I was cruising on the highway, and especially as I got to some of the flatter states, straight line type stuff. We're talking Missouri. We're talking Kansas. By the way, I was falling asleep driving through Kansas. Every time I have to drive through Kansas, I feel like I'm falling asleep. And in fact, I took the Jeep and I took the Freedom top panels. They call it a Freedom top. It's the fiberglass T-top, basically, on the hardtop Wranglers. I took those off and threw them in the back so I could get some sun and some wind blowing through my hair to wake me up a little bit. Because, man, Kansas is a struggle every time, especially you're on I-70 just going straight through Kansas. Oh, man. There's not the energy drinks in the world that can keep you awake through that type of drive. I do have to give a shout out to some of the long haul truckers who do that all day, every day. Man, I couldn't do it. I need some twistiness in the road. I need some dynamic change to the scenery other than just fields and sky for hours and hours on end. I need just something, a little more visual stimulus to keep me awake than that. So anyway, but, being a left lane hog is, I think, something that we see all the time. In fact, if you're listening to the show while you're driving and maybe you're on the freeway, you'll probably find yourself behind that left lane hog. And maybe you are that left lane hog. And I'm here to convince you to change your ways. We can all be better. So we're going to discuss that in the next segment here. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about why I think that it is actually a dangerous practice. There's a reason that the driver's handbook tells you not to do it. And my trip definitely gave me some highlights as to perhaps why that really is. So we're going to discuss all of that. We're going to play some of your car sounds and more, all right here on the Automotive ADHD show. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be back right after the news break. Don't go anywhere. Hey, put the top down, put the car in gear, and get cruising. Get on the road. Feel the wind through the air. It's the weekend. You're listening to the Automotive ADHD show. I'm your host, Matt West, and enjoy the drive. Oh, that, of course, is unless you're stuck behind a left lane hog on the freeway. Yeah, we were talking about those before the break here on the show, and I encountered so much of this doing my road trip, my unplanned road trip, I should add, from Washington, D.C. back to Colorado a few weeks ago. And, we've all been there. We've been, and I can already hear it. Someone's going to say, Matt, the left lane's not the fast lane. Yes, I know that. And that's the point. It's called the passing lane, by the way. Yeah, it is. Passing lane. Look it up. Anyway, so this is a problem. You've seen it. Maybe you are in that left lane. I'm going to encourage you to hop out of that real quick. Yeah, I'll give you some time. Put that blinker on. Do the blinker first. Get over into that right lane if you're not passing anybody. Go on. There we go. All right. You in there? Okay, good. So, the left lane, and this is, I think it's emblematic of a greater problem, and we're going to discuss that as we go through this segment here. But I saw it a lot while I was driving, and I mean a whole lot. I mean, constantly. In fact, every single time I would get in that right lane, there's a semi-truck. Okay, I'm going to get over to the left lane. Okay, we got someone in the left lane. He's not passing that semi-truck, so now he's matching the speed of the semi-truck, who's doing 5 under, and I'm behind this guy who's also doing 5 under. And man, it can drive you nuts. And I would argue, aside from it just being an annoyance, because it is annoying, it's probably one of the more annoying things you can encounter on the roadways. Yeah, there's people who don't signal. Yeah, there's people who do this. In terms of just sheer frustration, it can really drive you. It can just put you straight through the roof. But I think it's dangerous. And the reason for that is because, and I saw this several times, is you'll get somebody in that left lane who's not passing, and you'll get a truck over here in the right lane. And especially on a big freeway, a lot of semi-trucks, a lot of these guys, even though the freeway speed is 65, a lot of these guys have governed speeds on their truck, whether that's 65, whether that's maybe 70. In a lot of cases, these trucks aren't even really allowed to do the speed limit. It depends on where the truck's coming from, what state, what the rules are, maybe just the company policy for that truck. That's one thing I think people don't understand a lot is, why is this truck going so slow? He might actually be governed at that speed, all right? So I'm not usually going to be mad at the trucker first, though I am sometimes mad at the trucker if both trucks are at their governed speed and one guy tries to pass him. You've seen that. That's a whole nother thing. But what'll happen is you'll get this truck. People are going to get around him, okay? Well, there's someone hogging that left lane up front. So a bunch of people get around, and that person is now holding up 1, 2, 3, 4. You look behind you, there's 5 more cars even behind you, and you might be the 5th car back. And then what's going to happen, the second that person kind of inches past the truck, someone's going to jump in and they're going to cut that truck off with 0 following distance. They're going to cut him off with such little distance that he probably can't even see them underneath the hood of his vehicle. He likely doesn't even know they're there. That's entirely possible. And they're going to cut him off and they're going to shoot in front. That is a dangerous maneuver for one, but now you get a bunch of people doing that. Or what you'll get is someone in that left lane. Here's the alternate scenario. And I see this often too, is there's nobody really in the right lane, but somebody's cruising over here in the left lane. Even though they could be in the right lane, they're over here in the left lane. And maybe you're passing a couple cars here to get ahead. Maybe they're going slower. Well, you come up against someone who is in that left lane with no one to the side of them. And now you're jumping around to pass them on the right. And that's dangerous in its own sense, because one of the things that is important, I think, to safe driving is being predictable. Okay. So go to a track day, go to a high performance driving event, and go take it doesn't even have to be a course. Just go do a ride along with someone who knows what they're doing. And oftentimes people will allow you to do this. It depends on the track. Sometimes they don't let you have passengers, but a lot of times people are more than willing to say, hey, jump in the passenger seat. I'll go show you the course. I'll show you how I'm apexing it, doing whatever. And they'll explain what they're doing. They'll explain how they're passing. One of the rules to passing, be predictable. Don't pass somebody in a way that's completely, that's completely off grid in a sense, right? That doesn't make sense at all. Because, if you're on a racetrack, you got to have this situational awareness where the cars around you, you're checking your mirrors, you're checking behind you. You ever see race cars that have that huge mirror that goes all the way across like the top of the windshield? It's for that reason. You got to know who's around you. And if someone's going to make a really erratic pass in a way that's not safe, or they're just going to pass in a weird spot, you're sort of relying on the other people to behave in a certain way for you to take that corner and take it at that speed. Okay. And I hope I'm making sense with this. But it's that same idea on the roadway, even though you're not racing at speed. Okay, you're not. But it's the same principle that everyone is sort of going to assume, all right, I'm doing my thing. This guy's over here. He's doing his thing. He's going to go there. He's going to turn there. He's got his blinker on, whatever. A lot of what we do on the road and a lot of the quote unquote rules of the road exist not to necessarily be rules, but just to have everyone be fairly predictable on the roadway. And now, if you've ever rode a motorcycle, you know that having everyone be predictable is just a fantasy because it's not going to happen. And you should always, I took the MSF safety course to get my motorcycle endorsement on my license. It's been years now since I've taken it. But one of the things they try to instill in you is assume everyone is a complete lunatic and a sociopath and a maniac and everything. Just assume whatever it is that they probably won't do, like, yeah, they're not going to make that turn there. There's no reason for them to do that. Yeah, they're not going to jump the median right there. No, just assume they're going to do that. Plan for the worst, and think in your head, okay, if that guy pulls in front of me for no reason, what am I going to do? And if you do that, you're going to make yourself a much better rider on a motorcycle, obviously. But that mentality, I think, is missing from driver's education entirely. It really is. Maybe they mention it, but they don't instill the reasoning for it. If you ride a motorcycle, for one, and if you ride a motorcycle safely, you don't get yourself plastered on the pavement, you're generally going to be a better driver behind a four-wheeled machine, too. Now, I want to pull this up here. The Colorado Driver Handbook. It's going to vary state to state. I'm in Colorado. If you're listening on the radio, you're in Colorado as well. But I have a lot of people on the podcast, and yeah, it might be different where you live, but it's going to be really close to this. And it has a section referring to changing lanes and passing. And it says specifically, quote, you must yield the right of way to vehicles already occupying the lane you wish to enter or use for passing. Do not change lanes if another vehicle must slow down for you. That's one part of it there. Now, that then ties into the left lane law that exists, which, by the way, this is Colorado Revised Statute 42-4-1013, and it's referred to as the left lane law or the passing law. And it basically states that on highways with speed limits posted at 65 miles per hour or more, you must not drive in the leftmost passing lane unless you are passing another vehicle. Mind blown. Turning left, okay, I guess you could turn left there. Not typically on the freeway, it's not going to happen. Or if you are unable to safely merge into the right lane due to traffic or heavy traffic volume. These rules, while they should apply in heavy traffic situations, I can understand, especially on I-25 through Denver, you've got like 5 lanes of traffic in either direction, and it's all bumper to bumper. It's a little hard to observe left lane etiquette at that point. Here's the thing, though. It's the driver handbook in Colorado is I still think not very clear on this. It doesn't specifically outline this. It has actually happened here in Colorado where people have been pulled over at least for hogging that left lane. And what I think it, more than anything, what I think it exemplifies is inattentive drivers. If you're just sitting there oblivious to the world and you're in that left lane, it says you're not paying attention is what it does. So it's dangerous. It causes people to merge around you in weird and unpredictable ways. And it means, again, you're not paying attention, and that's a big problem. We need people paying attention. We're going to continue this and more on the Automotive ADHD Show after this. Keep that chop rolling. Keep it rolling. There we go. An encore presentation of Landon's 6-liter V8 in his Silverado Truck Norris Cam, providing the chop there. Hey, keep those car sounds rolling, by the way. Facebook.com/Automotive ADHD. Get them on the Facebook page, and then get them on my show, and maybe win some free stuff while you're at it. So, by the way, one thing I got to mention, we've been mentioning it every week here. Automotive ADHD is a proud supporter of Drift, Colorado. Yes, make sure you get out to a Drift, Colorado event. Even if you get out there just to spectate it, it's a lot of fun. A lot of good folks out there having a great time. And maybe if you want to get a car a little bit sideways, burn some tires, go out there too. Go take your car out there. It's a lot of fun. The next event coming up here is they are, by the way, today and tomorrow, they're at IMI for the Round 2 Formula Drift Pro-Am. And then September 6th and 7th is at PPIR, the Drift Clinic, and Round 4 DC Championship. Check it out at driftcolorado.com for details. Now, I talked about this at the top of the show. This is a decision that just has my mind blown, and as well as probably everyone who was at this dealership when it happened. A Florida man, here's the headline, hat tip Jerry Perez from The Drive. Florida man trades Ferrari F40 for Ineos Grenadier and $2.4 million in cash. Now, if I stopped the headline and just said Ineos Grenadier, everyone would be, just completely besides themselves. 2.4 million. See, there's still a problem with that in my book. Now, granted, it's this guy's F40 and his piece of metal. He can do what he wants with his piece of metal, even if he really wants to get it under market rate. And I guess really wants an Ineos Grenadier. Now, a lot of us are familiar with the Ineos Grenadier now at this point. In case you are not, that is a old school Land Rover look-alike type thing. So Land Rover stopped making the cool old school Land Rovers a long time ago, and people still want them. Land Rover doesn't want to make them. So Ineos is a company that does a lot of stuff. Ineos actually does like petroleum products and all these different things. Well, they have a CEO who said, I want an old Land Rover, but I can't go buy a new old Land Rover, so we're going to make one, and it actually works out pretty good. And, they're pricey. They are a bit pricey. They're on the higher, I won't say high end, but they're a luxury SUV, much like how a original Land Rover would be a luxury SUV. They're not that expensive, though. They're not trade your F40 in expensive. Now, I'm going to pull something up here while we're live, and I'm going to pull up a Ferrari F40 price for you because it's quite a bit more. We're going to do some math here. I was never good at math in school, but having said that, we're going to figure out how much money did this guy leave on the table? And I guess when you have F40 money, you can just leave F40 money on the table. I guess it doesn't really matter. But according to Classic.com, the average price for an F40, which by the way goes from 1987 to 1992. For many people, the F40 is their grail of an F40. It was the F40 that got them, or it was the Ferrari that got them into Ferraris. Each generation has a different car like that. For a lot of people, that F40 was the halo car for Ferrari for them. And, even Ferrari, we think of them as expensive, luxury sports cars. Well, even, you know how Toyota might have a halo car, as we call it, or Lexus, for example. Let's use the Lexus LFA. Absurdly expensive, absurdly over-engineered, incredibly cool. Most people aren't going to buy one. And this is higher up than, say, your Supra, for example. Now, most people aren't going to buy one, but it gets people talking. It's a tool of publicity, and it's going to get people into the showroom to buy an LC400 or whatever, right? Well, the same idea with the F40, okay? The F40 is way up there. Let's see, the top sale, the most recent F40 sold, aside from this one will skew the numbers, sold for $3.2 million, with the top selling F40 being around $4 million. And the average of the pack is somewhere around $2.5 million, maybe a little bit higher. Bear in mind, there's not that many F40s out there. This guy, okay, it's not that egregious of a price difference, but the way he did it is just, it boggles the mind. Also because it boggles the mind in a way that is inconceivable, I guess, unless you have Ferrari F40 money. And maybe this makes perfect sense to you. I don't have Ferrari F40 money. And so this boggles my mind a little bit. But the guy basically walked into this Ineos dealership with his Ferrari F40. A side note, imagine being the sales guy on the floor at that dealership. And you see this F40 drive by and you're like, whoa, an F40, no way. And then he pulls into your dealership. Oh man, he's pulling in here. The guy gets out, walks into the dealership, and you're the first salesman. You grab the up, and then you go, well, what can I do for you? He's like, I want to trade this car in. Deer in headlights. What? What do you mean? So, and that's exactly how this unfolded. That is precisely how it unfolded. So the sales guy went back to his manager and probably said something along the lines of, hey, boss, this guy's got an F40. What do we do? And the boss immediately, they said, all right, we'll get you the Ineos Grenadier that you want and a check for $2.4 million. And whoa, that sounds like a ton of money. It's more money than I've ever had. However, as I just showed you, 2.5 would be close to average. Really, we're pushing more like 3. Nicer examples, the highest of end examples are in the 4 million, right? And, you know, I guess this can happen at any level of car ownership. This certainly can happen at any level, right? And to this guy, who knows who he is, there's no word on where he got the F40, how he found it. Was he the original owner? Who knows? Maybe he was just a rich guy who said, this is just an old Ferrari. I'm not really into it. I'm not really into maintaining this thing. It's a pain in the butt. It gets too much attention. My wife doesn't like it. I don't know, right? When you have that kind of money, maybe that's still part of your decision-making process. You know, to those of us who are automotive enthusiasts who are salivating at just the idea of maybe getting to drive one of these cars some point in our lives, owning it. Oh, I don't even know about owning it. Granted, again, I don't know if I would want to own one of these, just considering the maintenance and considering some of the hype on it. You know, I don't know, but this guy did that. And now the dealership, meanwhile, they immediately, without dropping a beat, cut the dude a check for $2.4 million. And they flipped it the next day immediately, because of course they did, for $2.5 million. So they made themselves an extra $100,000 on that flip. That's not bad. That could be worse. If you're a dealership and you make $100,000 profit in a day, I mean, that is actually not bad. That's a good day. I remember when I was in college and I worked very briefly for a summer at a Acura dealership. And especially on like a certified pre-owned or a newer car, you were lucky to make a few $100 on a car like that as the dealer, not even the sales guy as the commission, but like as profit on that car. So anyway, would you do it? Would I do it? Well, I don't have an F40, so I can't speak to that. But well, let's just throw that. Let's see, Grenadier price. Let's just see here, just for the giggles here. Oh, that MSRP, it starts at $80,000. I hope he's happy with his Grenadier. I really do. Go figure. Go figure. Hey, we're going to keep this going on the bonus edition of the show. I didn't even get to a whole topic that I really wanted to, so you're going to have to tune into the podcast. We're going to talk about a Hemi that was stolen, or maybe not. That's right here on the podcast after this.